So Mr. Santosh Nayak is there on your screen actually. Welcome Santosh. Actually, he is the country head digital sales for Connect. He has got over 25 years of experience in software technology and various BPO companies. He has implemented a lot of strategies, especially in penetration to new markets, launching new products. He's got a wide experience. He is going to bring in more of a customer perspective as well. He's been proudly associated with Indian Air Force. His initial career has been with Indian Air Force. He's worked with large organizations like HCL, Cross Domain, EBIX. Welcome, Santosh.
Hi, Kalyan. Good morning, Kalyan, and good morning, everybody. Glad to be here.
What does the customer think about all of these changes? What is going in his mind actually? I mean, I know that Santosh has been meeting a number of customers across, within breadth across the globe. So I would like to have some views from Santosh quickly on what are the pain points, what are the challenges from a customer perspective, Santosh.
Okay. So thanks, Kalyan. I think if we have to say I think pain points when I speak to the customers, I think it's possibly an understatement. They possibly call this a storm, and the storm was probably it came as a surprise. It also came with the speed. Then also it had the intensity. I think it had all of that, and everybody, I think, as a customer, when I speak to them, they feel that when this happened, this COVID-19 happened, they had to take a cover, obviously, to protect themselves from the storm, and then put some fixes, of course, to maintain the business continuity. But I think that there is a good sign. I think when I speak more and more to the customer, let's look at the optimistic side and a hopeful uh, side of the perspective. There is, I think, looks like there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what it looks like. And most of the customers today are actually planning for the new normal actually that is emerging in the industry, and they are actually planning for all of it. And what are the 3 or 4 things that they're planning in terms of the new normal as the business is actually transforming? So one obviously is the growth. They have to bring back the growth into their business. I think that's one main objective that they have. And this growth, I think it can be by increasing the speed of acquisition, and also there are ways of actually looking at new ways of acquiring the customer and new business models that are actually emerging. And that's one thing I think the customers are actually definitely planning. The second thing is, as Abhijit was saying, this is about the cost, this is about the timeliness, and this is about simplicity. I think that's the second thing, and that cost factor to make the business nimble, to react, respond with speed. I think that's the second thing that the customers are actually looking at. And the third, surprisingly, if you see, I think we all have spoken about generally the customer experience. Customer experience is a big thing in the industry for the last I think 5 years or so that I see. But there is also another thing that's actually people are talking about. One is the partner experience, because the business continuity has to be maintained at Canada, and also about the employee experience, because these are the people who have actually supported the businesses during these difficult times. And the other thing that I always see is that, especially in the Indian context, when I speak to the customer, in fact, many customers actually were in some way or the other, though they say that this came as a storm, there was also a storm that was actually, I think, blowing in the market for the last 2 years. If you all know that the Indian economy was slowing, and there was a degrowth that was happening, and in some way or the other, I think most of the customers were actually preparing for that. But what has happened is that I think some kind of clarity has now emerged. This pain was actually prolonging for quite some time. The clarity has emerged. The decision making actually will become only faster, in the sense that they get, because if they don't react at this point in time, I think probably they will lose the opportunity, because crisis also provides an opportunity to actually for the businesses in the difficult times. So that, I think, is in general what I can say from the customer standpoint. Now, having said that, about this is in the macro environment, how does that actually translate into the CFO function? How does it actually translate, if you see that in the shared services context that we have, probably how does this translate into the digital transformation journey that everybody that was talking about for the last few years, but the one that has accelerated. So putting it from the first point that I was talking about, which is about bringing back the growth. So if you look at the growth perspective, I think let's look at the front office. I think customers are doing a lot of things today in the front office side, which is almost, I think, which is known to all of us, and especially we being in the CLM business, we know what the customers are doing. They are implementing technologies, they are implementing bots, they are trying to reduce the cost of acquisition of the customers, and all of that, all of that. They are actually deploying part-time workers, they are also deploying gig workers, and we are engaged with these customers on the lot of fronts on the customer lifecycle management. Actually, they are reimagining the way that the customers can be acquired today. But now, does that stop there? And how does it actually, kind of, impact the CFO function or also the adjacent functions that you have? And generally in the shared services industry, Kalyan, we talked about generally this is order to cash, which is more like a marketing, jargon that we all have used in the shared service industry. But let's break that up. Once the customer is required for that to translate into a cash for a CFO function, whether it is actually onboarding process, whether it is a fulfillment process, whether it is an order processing process, and whether that is invoicing process, which is a core in the shared services today. And that has to actually, be done with speed, and which can actually further reduce the cost of acquisition, which can actually reduce the cost of service and all of that. And today, most of the CFOs are actually, it's not that it has not been done in the past. There are new technologies which have emerged, AI, ML, and NLP based technologies. And most of these processes that we talked about today are actually highly amenable to these technologies which is available in the market. And service providers like have effectively used that. And quite a few of the CFOs are actually today are engaged with us, talking to some of these technologies for deployment in their own shared services at times, or maybe transforming the shared services for them to actually bring that speed. I think that's primarily from the growth perspective that I can see is that what the CFOs are actually thinking in terms of the direction that they want to take in order to increase the speed to actually order to cash and stuff like that. Now, secondly, I think let me go to the concept, go to cost, which actually Abhijit actually talked about it a lot. It is not anything new. The CFOs themselves have been very innovative in that area. As wave one, wave two, at decades of shared services, centralization has been done, optimization has been done, standardization has been done, and all of that has happened. But the technology that has invested, unfortunately, has to an extent become a legacy today, and that is also what Abhijit was actually alluding to, whether it is simplicity or the ease of access. The cost of the people has actually gone up. The cost of infrastructure has gone up. And now if they are looking at actually reducing the cost of technology, it's not going to be incremental in these difficult times. It's going to be quantum jump that they are actually wanting to make. And some of these conversations are actually happening with us in terms of as to how we can actually transform their actually existing shared services into a new age shared services to the same thing that they've been actually doing. Many of these, whether it is procure to pay, which is actually it is order to cash and all of that. So the value proposition from some of the shared service providers like ourselves today is what? And today we can bring in new technology, the replacement cost of the technology, whoever absorb that, it's going to come more in the form of an OPEX and not in the form of a CAPEX. And then we also say, well, unlike a system integrator, probably we can today provide an outcome-based services. And it is not just about implementing a technology, that can also be provided as a transaction-based services. And this is how we can actually transform the existing shared services into the next level, and then make their businesses nimble, make their businesses react and respond to the requirements with speed. I think that's the second aspect in terms of the cost that I can speak about. Now let me also go to the other, yeah. So the last point, Kalyan?
Sure, go ahead, please.
Yeah, okay. And because there are three things that I talked about. One is the growth, the second is the cost, and the third is, I think, the customer experience, and which is now translating into employee experience and the partner experience. And these are the people actually who help them in the continuity of the business. And we see that the CFOs today, I see actually a lot of RFPs today coming back in the market, especially on the accounts payable side and also on the T&D payable side. And I feel that, and the main objectives that are defined in this RFPs is that to increase the turnaround time of the accounts payable, improve partner experience, improve query resolution, decrease disputes. And these are some of the objectives that they are actually defining upfront in the RFPs that are actually getting released in the market. So which essentially shows that there is a lot of effort that's going in actually to increase the employee experience and the partner experience for continuity of the business, which has to actually thrive in the emerging market. I think these are the 3 or 4 things that I think that I'm actually getting to hear from the CFOs in the shared service context. Thanks so much.
Superb. Yeah. Superb. Thank you, Santosh, for that perspective. It's good that you brought in the customer experience perspective. You call it effectiveness and efficiency. Efficiency is business results and effectiveness is customer results. So we don't want to compromise one for the other. Jokingly, we call it as operation success, patient dead. So we don't want that kind of a situation. So thank you for that, Santosh. Let's move on to next quickly.